Hi, these comments are for NS. This is Michael from BetterTOEFLScores.com. I hope you're having a great day, and I'm getting ready to listen to, I think it's integrated speaking, maybe. Let me listen to a little bit of it, make
I
sure.
agree with the following statement that it is better for a student to study in a library.
No, wait a minute. Okay, here it is. So, do you agree or disagree with the following statement? Is it better? It is better for a student to study in the library than to study at home. Use specific reasons and details to explain your answer. Okay, now notice a trick. Do you notice how you can sometimes use the question as a way of helping you with your grammar? Notice how it uses in the comparison to study plus prepositional phrase and then the infinitive again plus another prepositional phrase. So to study, then to study, right? Okay, you also had a question about delivery, right? So maybe let me deal with that first. So I think in your other email you said, "Well, Michael, how do I improve my delivery?" Okay, there's a lot of different ways to approach that idea. It's more complicated than you might think. Okay, first of all, you need to find out what problems you're having. Are you having any problems with vowel or consonant sounds, for example? Now, if you don't know the answer to that question, you should take my TOEFL pronunciation pretest immediately. Let's see what's going on, right? So you have to find out what your problems are, then you study recommended lessons to improve your intelligibility. These are all accent reduction lessons. I designed them to target any weak areas that you might have. You go through those videos, you practice those lessons, and you can even send me some voice recording practice at the end. Just keep all of your speaking and pronunciation practice limited to only 60 seconds every day. The exception is when you do a pronunciation pretest, number 1 or 2, or the post test. Those take longer than 1 minute, and that's okay. But that's one of the things you have to do. Now, second of all, is pay attention when I give you the feedback. When I give you feedback on a practice test, like what I'm going to do right now, right? You want to make sure that you get that feedback. You write down any notes I might say regarding your delivery. If I tell you, for example, you have problems with intonation, you want to write that down. And then you need to go over to the pronunciation part of my course and find lessons that deal with tone. And I have five different lessons on intonation, right? So you got to figure out what's wrong, study the recommended lessons to help you improve. So that's the basic way of improving pronunciation, at least using my course. But that's not enough. No, that's not nearly enough. Right now, you need to really increase your exposure to the language. A lot of input. That means you're watching TV, listening to the radio, you're watching movies, you're getting a lot of exposure to the language, and the more exposure you get, eventually your output, your speaking, and even your writing becomes better, right? So, in addition to getting that exposure, put yourself out there and really focus on communicating with native speakers. Native speakers will say, "What was that? What did you say?" And then you have to rephrase it. They will help you change your pronunciation, but you have to interact with them in order for that to happen. So find every possible opportunity you have to interact with native speakers. If you got really good friends who are native speakers, you can say, "You know what? If there's something that I say that you're having trouble understanding, please let me know so I can rephrase that." Right? So get that feedback, right? So I think a combination of following the lessons in my course, taking the pretest, doing the TOEFL practice test, getting the feedback, and improving your exposure, and then talking a lot with native speakers, all of these things have a very positive effect on improving your delivery or pronunciation. Remember that improving pronunciation takes time. You've been speaking a certain way in English probably for years, and you're now trying to change, to undo some of those problems that you might be having. So be patient. You can do this. Okay, so the next step is let's listen to one of your
Than to
speaking
study at
practice
home
tests.
because of many
Here we
I
go.
agree with the following statement that it is better for a student to study in a library than to study at home because of many reasons. First, there are no distractions in a library. Students can only focus on their studies. For example, when I was in a high school, I always went to library and I got so much good grades in my academic sessions. Secondly, there are so many resources in a library like books and journals, and you can take a lot of information about them. For example, my cousin had an assignment last year, so she went to a library and she took notes from many journals and books, and she got many good scores on it. That's why I think that
Okay, so what can we say now? My feeling is a little bit below 3 on this. So I'm going to say 2.5 to 3. Let's say 21 to 22 points out of 30 on this. So definitely delivery problems. But you also have language use problems. Be careful, right? And I'm not sure about topic development. I got to listen to it one more time. There's a lot of things here to keep track of, believe it or not. It's complicated. So let's listen to it one more time.
I agree with the following statement that it is better for
I agree with the what statement?
I agree with the following statement that
I agree with the following. Following. Sounds like you're saying phony statement, but following. Following statement. So be careful of those longer
it is better
words, right? Make sure you're pronouncing all those syllables clearly.
it is better for a student to study in a library than to study at home because of many reasons.
You don't have enough time to talk about many reasons, right? So don't go down that road. That's not very specific. Go to my TOEFL Independent Speaking Strategies lesson. Look at the model responses and especially look at the introductions to get an idea of how you can maybe frame your introduction a little bit differently so that kind of forecasts the reasons. Or you can just start off and say, first of all, just say, I agree. Studying in a library is a lot better than studying at home or something. Then say, first of all, state your first reason. In addition to blah, blah, second of all, blah, 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 and then state the second reason.
First, there are no distractions in a library.
There are no distractions, is what you're saying. No, there are no distractions. So you're having problems with different vowel sounds. So you need to be more comfortable with the sound spelling patterns of American English. You need to be more comfortable with the vowel sounds of American English.
Students can only focus on their studies. For example, when I was in a high school, I always went to library and I got so much good grades in
I was in the library. I got so many good grades. Or I got a lot of good grades. You can't say much good grades because grades is a plural count noun and we use much. I have much homework. I have many homework assignments. So you have to use much with an uncount noun. Many is used with count nouns.
my academic sessions. Secondly, there are so many resources in a library like
You're using a lot of there are. That's weak. Very weak sentence structure. Your grammar is weak. So go to the grammar part of my course. I want you to study the lesson. It's called Sentence Variety. I think that's a good one for you in my 7-step system, right? Study that lesson. Now go to Google. I want you to type in TOEFL Sentence Variety. See if you can find one of my blog lessons at better TOEFL scores on that topic also. So try to think about different ways of framing your sentences without using the it and the their sentence constructions. Try to avoid those constructions. They're not very direct in how you explain ideas, and they can be a little bit vague and unclear at times.
books and journals, and you can take a lot of information.
Notice how you can take. No, it's I can get a lot of information from. So avoid that second person singular point of view. That's not the right point of view for this kind of speaking. It's too informal. It distances yourself from the speaking task, which is the opposite of what you want to do.
About them. For example, my cousin had an assignment last year, so
This is
she went
good.
to a library and
Yes, I like my cousin had. So now you're focusing on the third person point of view. That's a better point of view than using you.
she took notes from many journals and books, and she got many good scores on it. That's
I would say, how about and thus, or and as a result, she got many good scores. So consider using more transition words to help show the connection of ideas in your speaking. It makes it easier for me to understand what you're saying, right? And you're going to get higher marks on the TOEFL exam. Go to speaking lesson number 6. How to make your speaking and writing more coherent. That's a good lesson for you there. Now, if you go to Google, here's some keywords on another lesson. Type in the keywords TOEFL transition words. You'll find an article I wrote over at Better TOEFL Scores. I think that's a good lesson for you also. It'll help you learn different phrases and words that you can use for different rhetorical purposes.
why I think I agree with the
Okay, so there you go. So my score I think is pretty accurate. I said maybe 20 to 21 points out of 30 in the beginning. That's it. So with I think I gave you enough comments to keep you busy. So try not to say much more on that. All right, hang in there. So I think with pronunciation, based on your response here, be careful of syllable division, right? Make sure that you're pronouncing all the syllables in the words that you say. You want to get a little bit more comfortable with the vowel sounds of American English, and then how words are spelled, and then what vowels represent those different spellings. So as you go through the lessons in the pronunciation area of my course, as you do your practice, pay attention to the spellings of those words. It gives you the clue as how you need to pronounce them also. All right, thank you.